Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're calling from. We're glad you're here today. My name's Henrik Bick. I'm with the communications team here at the Music Business Association. Happy to welcome you to today's Music Biz Passport event that will explore the Global Market View report from the IMPF. Before we get started, just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. As you're getting settled today in the Zoom room, in order to connect with our panelists and with one another, you can use the Zoom webinar chat to do so. Just be sure to change your chat settings to everyone, so that way the folks you're looking to network with can see your messages. We also have a dedicated Q&A box for questions and answers for later on in the session. If you have a question that comes up during the webinar, feel free to drop it in the Q&A box and our presenters will get to it at the end of today's session. Just a reminder that this Passport event is being recorded and will be available on Music Biz's website after the fact. Usually recordings are posted by end of business on the day that takes session, so you should see it either by end of today or early tomorrow. This will also be our last Passport event for the summer. The Passport series picks up again on Tuesday, September 10th, with a session on revolutionizing streams, the title being Unleashing Africa's Music Powerhouse, and it'll be presented by Music Biz member Tuned Global. Feel free to register for that by visiting musicbiz.org. You can find the Passport page from our website there and register for that session and all the rest of the Passport events coming down the pike for free. But won't waste much more time. Want to get to today's session. So thank you all for being here, and thank you for today's host for kicking things off. Please welcome Emmanuel Legrand.
Hello. How's the sound? Good? Can you hear me? Well, my name is Emmanuel Legrand, and I am your host today. I'm French, so don't hold it against me. And I will be doing a presentation, but also moderating a panel. And I would like to call two participants to the session. Francesca Trainini. Francesca, can you? Voila. And we have John. Francesca is in Italy, and we have John Fishlock from South Africa. We are very far from each other, but we are more or less on the same time zone compared to most of the people who are actually in the US at the moment. So it's the end of the day for us. And after this session, we will go and have a drink, and probably you will go and have a cup of coffee. So very quickly, my name is Emmanuel Legrand. I am the editor of a news platform called Creative Industries News. If you have attended Music Biz, you have probably seen me moderating quite a few panels in the past few years. I always like going there. And I would like here to say thank you to Portia and to Nicole, who have invited us to this webinar, which is a follow-up to a session I did last May in Nashville. So we are here to present a document that is produced by IMPF, and I would like to ask Francesca to give a little bit of an overview of what IMPF stands for, and who you represent, and what's your goal in life.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me, Emmanuel, and Music Biz. It's a pleasure to be here. IMPF is a forum of independent music publishing companies. Roughly 10 years ago, actually just over 10 years ago, a group of 13 music publishers from several territories in Europe and some from the US felt the need to actually have a place in which we could discuss what was going on around us and how we could cope in the ever-changing business that we face today and we were facing in those days. And this led to the creation of IMPF.
Do you want
I beg your pardon.
John, do you want to take over? Or?
Yeah, and it's from its birth, it's grown exponentially over the course of the last 10 years to a membership which I think is somewhere around 250 now. and it's got publishers from all around the world, and every year we have a number of webinars, seminars, where everyone gets on board to talk about various subjects, and then the board itself meets 4 times a year to discuss key events, and has within it various subcommittees that handle matters like AI, like CMOs and what needs to be done and how we need to approach them, and what are the key issues from a global perspective. So it's a very active and very busy board, and it's a very busy organization altogether.
What's your connection, or is there a connection between IMPF and AIMP in the US?
It's a friendly connection. We host breakfast every time we go to Palma, and we kind of sort of make sure that our respective members, connect, because the ties between the continents, the IMPF and the AIMP are very important, very close. So, we just try and foster that relationship as we do with all of the other territories. We are actually, as John was saying, and I apologize for this, I don't know what happened to me, the excitement, obviously. We are trying to make sure that we have members from everywhere around the world, because our needs as music publishers, as independent music publishers, are more or less the same, and we can cater for all of the independents. We do provide so much music to the global environment. It is very important that we make sure that music publishers don't feel alone or are basically working too hard to survive. So that's one of our aims.
Yeah, I also like to add. Also, I'd like to add that AIMP is actually almost like a sister organization. We have an MOU with the with AIMP as well.
Great. And well, we're going to talk about what you just mentioned, which is the power of independent music publishers. And so I'm going to switch to full screen. So I'm going to do share screen, share, and I'm going to start the slideshow. And I think it's going to last about 20 minutes, and then we'll go through questions and answers, first with Francesca and John, and then with you in the audience. So bear with me, and we're going to start now. Okay, I hope everybody sees. So welcome to this presentation. It's not the first time that IMPF produces the Global Market View. It's actually the 4th time, and it's the 2nd time for myself. Usually it comes out around April of the year, and this year we basically presented it at Music Biz in Nashville, as I said earlier on. This document and the whole business of IMPF actually itself is supported by Creative Europe, which is a European Commission program, but also this document was actually made possible thanks to Music Match, who very kindly sponsored it and financed it. So thank you, Music Match. I already presented myself. I have a little present for you. If you go to creativeindustriesnews.com and you go to memberships option, if you pick the full year, at the end you will have coupon, and if you enter Hello Creative in caps as it is, you will have a 50% discount on the subscription. So that's the end of my sales speech. For those who don't know me, I work for Music Week, Billboard, and many other publications. I also authored many reports. The most recent ones were on neighboring rights, and another one on music streaming for an organization in Europe called GESAC, and which is actually seeing the music streaming from the perspective of authors and composers. And as I said, authors of last year's IMPF report. The brief I was given by IMPF is to focus on the independent music publishing sector, and first primarily was to evaluate, the value of the sector and on a global perspective, and outline the role and importance of independent music publisher, and also, if possible, identify some business trends. Before I forget, if you want the full report, you go on the IMPF website and you can download it. It's about 35 or 40 pages. It's not that long, but there's more than what I'm going to be presenting today. Annette Barrett, who's the president of IMPF, who works for Reservoir, I think summed it up very well. It's the only report looking exclusively at the international impact and position of the independent music publishing industry. That's what we're trying to do here. So I'm going to start with a warning. It's fascinating. Music publishing is the second or third, depending where you put live music, business in the music industry, and yet we have very little global data on music publishing, and that is a bit of a problem. That's why this report is existing, but this report is using already existing data. It's just that it is compiling it in a different way. Since IMPF is based in Europe, I use the euro as the currency for the report. But if you can use basically 1 for 1, €1 for a dollar. That will give you an idea of the value. Methodology, as I said, there's multiple data points. We have the chance to have an economist called Will Page, who every year puts out a report on the global value of the music copyright industry, and that includes recording and music publishing. Music and Copyright, the publication, puts out an annual publishing market share report, that they've been doing that for many, many years. CISAC, the International Confederation of Societies of Authors and Composers, puts out every year a global collection report, which has the data from all the big collective management organizations around the world that collect and distribute music rights to publishers and songwriters. And then we have different sources in France, Canada, the US, and we match them in order to get to this result. The limits to the methodology, as you can imagine, is that it's an extrapolation. It is not 100% proof, but it gives you a sense of the weight of the publishing industry. Only one country in the world has the most granular data on music publishing, and it's France. Every year you have a report in France that is about 30 pages long and gives you a wealth of data, including the number of contracts that have been signed during the year, the number of contracts that has been handed back, and so on. I wish we could have that on a global basis, maybe someday. This report, and I'm very careful about that, and you have to bear that in mind, it's about 2022 figures, not 2023. That's due to the delay in collection distribution of royalties from CMOs. So we're talking about 22 figures, but I'll talk about a little bit about the 23 figures. Unfortunately, we cannot have data on niche genres and more granular data. That's something that we need to address. And I hope that at some point we will also be able to do that. To start with, what is an independent music publisher? And there's an organization in Europe called Impala, which represents independent music companies. And their definition is that an independent music publishing company is an independent music label is a company whose market share is below 5%, and not above 5%, as mistakenly written here. And that is not owned by a major company. So that, is, a, a huge amount of companies, if you take it like that, because there are, publishing companies with 1 or 2 people that have a catalog with, 200, 500, 1,000 copyrights. And you have companies like major companies that have millions of copyrights and have a market share that is way above 5%. So, the market is more or less the same around the world. You have 3 major companies: Universal Music Publishing Group, Sony Music Publishing, and Warner Chappell Music. On a global basis, they have branches around the world and, tend to have, as I said earlier, millions and millions of copyrights. There's 2 big players that are in a league of their own, but not yet in the league of the majors. It's BMG and Cobalt that both are above 5% in global market share. And then there is a myriad of independent music publishers of all sizes, covering all music genres, and a lot of them, and in every single country in the world. And on top of that, you have self-published songwriters and composers, and that's a market that is extremely difficult to measure. So that's not exactly what I have focused on. I have focused on the established publishing companies. So based on the music and copyright data that was published for 2022, I added all the different types of music publishers. And overall, non-major publishers represented 39.9% of the overall market. And if you took out BMG and Cobalt, you end up with a market share for independent music publisher of 26.7%, which is slightly lower than the 27.1 a year before, but it is still, if you look at it as a combined group of companies, it's the biggest music publisher in the world is actually independent music publishers. The market share is above Sony Music Publishing, Universal Music Publishing, and Warner Chappell. And I think that's the first finding of this report, is that taken together, the independent music publisher is bigger than the biggest global music publisher. And that's with companies in countries all around the world. So how about the value? Extracting from Will Page's report, the global music publishing business is estimated to be worth $15.5 billion. Here, actually, I use dollars because Will Page reports in dollars, but I converted that into euros after that. As you can see, the market, the music publishers market, grew by $2 billion between 21 and 22, which is quite an achievement, because if you remember well, around that time we had something called COVID. The revenues from CMOs, which is actually calculated by CSAC, is 10.8 billion euros, and direct licensing revenues were estimated at 3.7 billion euros. So altogether, the publisher's share, excluding the songwriter's share, I've calculated is 9.1 billion euros. And if you take 26.7% of that, we reach a figure of 2.43 billion euros. And that's, I would say, the value of the global independent music publishing sector in 2022. That value was 2.08 billion euros in 21. So it is a significant growth. It's not 2 billion, but it is still, it's, almost $500 million. So I think there's a lot of dynamism in the sector, even though the market share also is lower than in 2021. So yeah, just repeating myself. What is interesting is that since we've been doing it for 4 years and using the same methodology, we can see things on a long period of time, over a long period of time. And so we started in 2018, and we have, figures for 2022. Actually 5 years now. So we started with 1.25 billion euros, and we are now at 2.43 billion euros. And what you see is that it has been a constant curve upwards and not downwards. Even during the COVID period, you can see that, it's probably slowed down the growth a little bit, but it is still pretty impressive. And I think, to repeat myself, it really shows that there is a huge dynamism in the independent music publishing sector globally. And yeah, the figure you can extrapolate for that is that the market has doubled in 5 years. And, I don't know many businesses that have doubled in 5 years, and I think there's something to be proud about that. Molly Newman provided this quote, doubling revenues in 5 years is significant. I can agree with her. We are less affected by market changes because we have a diverse mix of revenues, and we are seeing significant improvements in digital revenues. And in truth, digital revenues have accelerated during COVID, and now represent a significant share of revenues for all the societies that report their figures to CSAC. So, as I said, these figures are for 2022, and well, what can 2023 be like? My estimates is that the market will grow by a minimum of 8 to 12%. It was 16.8% in 22. I think 12% is a conservative percentage, because if you look at the reports from the biggest rights societies around the world, ASCAP reported revenues up 14.1%, SGAI up 11%, SOCAN in Canada 8%, GEMA in Germany plus 8.4%, SACEM last week reported plus 5%. So I think from the business the revenues that are going to come from the collective management organizations around the world is probably going to be indeed around 8 to 12%. We'll know that in October when CSAC publishes the 2023 Global Collections Report. The big question mark is, has the SIG markets suffered or not from the Hollywood strikes, and also the impact it had on production and the slowing down of production of new shows and new films. That, for the moment, is a big question mark, and we don't have the figures yet. Filippo Sugar, who runs a company in Italy and is, was for many, many years the publisher and the record label for Andrea Bocelli, has an interesting view on the music publishing sector. The sector has become increasingly more complex with an expanding number of revenue streams, but it has created far more solid business over the years, as the figures in this report show. And on an optimistic side, he says that the sector is enjoying some much welcome tailwinds, which I hope will last for many more years to come. So to recap, in 2022, the independent music publishing sector, taken as a whole, had a 26.7% market share on a global basis, for a value of 2.43 billion euros, up 16.8% compared to the previous years. In the past 5 years, the value of the independent music publishing market has doubled, and we estimate that it will grow, at least by 8 to 12% in 2023, and probably, the same, more or less the same in 2024, because it looks, for the first half year of the year, it looks that the figures are so far pretty good. So I finish with some more words of wisdom from Annette Barrett, that the independent music publishers are more than just a market share. And I would like to, bring a little bit of food for thought. Independent music publishers are, crucial to the ecosystem because of their role in A&R and, signing at a very early stage, most of the time songwriters who also most of the time are performers. They help up-and-coming artists, author and composers and artists to get their foot into the business, get better. They contribute to local economies. Never forget that. You know, it's local jobs, it's taxes, it's investment, it's people who are, you know, speaking the local languages. It's also people who interact with government. It's also people who interact with the CMOs and all the ecosystem. Independent music publisher tend also to support niche music genres, or, you know, sometimes what you would call hard, you know, difficult music. And, you know, it's a concept that is not really dominant in the US, but outside of the US, the notion of cultural diversity is massive. And I would say that independent music publishers all around the world are active agents of cultural diversity for the role that they're playing at a local level and in supporting the local music scene. Looking at the future, I think from a business perspective, a lot of work needs still to be done in order to have a set of data that will help us understand better the music publishing sector, both globally and locally. As I said, the only country where you have a lot of granular data is France. I hope more countries will follow that example, and that we will be able to have a lot of information. It's not just for the sake of it. Data is very helpful for many reasons, because it helps, first of all, to count, you know, who you are, what's your value, but also go to local governments and also, for example, to the European Commission and say, hey, this is who we are, this is who we represent, this is how many companies we have, this is how many, you know, this is how much taxes we pay, this is how many artists we have signed. And, you know, it really helps to document the sourcing, the origin of new talent. And, you know, I think we need to do a little bit more, you know, work a bit more, you know, in order to have that kind of data. Last but not least, I would like to thank a few people, Portia Sabin and Nicole Hensey from Music Biz, for inviting me to Nashville to present this report, and also to invite us to for this webinar. Jer Hatton is the person who makes IMPF run, and Jer has been, you know, the person who was pushing me to deliver on time, because sometimes I tend to procrastinate. Music Match, I mentioned them. Thank you so much for supporting this project. Will Page for his amazing research. Music and Copyright for what they've been doing for many, many years. CSAC for their report, and publishers around the world. I have the best conversations every time with publishers. We have fun, and if you are interested in meeting publishers, like-minded publishers, my recommendation would be to go to Palma at the summit organized by IMPF early October. And I think we are almost, you know, I think some like 400 publishers have already registered, and I think we're reaching our limits. On that note, final word from the IMPF board. The independent music publishing market has continued to grow, and this is testimony to the resilience of music publishers who have consistently been all hands on deck despite the circumstances. We are confident that the figures for this coming year will show additional growth, thanks to the ongoing positive trajectory of digital music consumption, the full recovery of the live sector, and the strength of traditional media. On that note, I will go to back to the screen and invite John and Francesca. And I will ask them my first question, which is very simple. You've probably read the report. I hope you have. What did you make of it? Did you learn something, or did it confirm something that you already knew? Let's start with you, John.
It confirmed for me, it certainly confirmed the importance of the independent music publishing sector. Those figures of 27.1%, if I'm correct, is indicative of how important the independent music publisher is. You know, and it certainly shows the weight that the independent music publishers have when it comes to engaging with governments, when it comes to engaging with the industry generally, we can be taken seriously as a body of that size. And also seeing the growth, the double growth is tremendous. And it bodes the question, and perhaps Emmanuel, you can answer this: has the majors doubled its growth, or do we know what the percentage they've grown over the course of the last few years?
Actually, I haven't calculated this, but I'll do it for next time. But it's a very good question. No, it's a very good question. I suspect it hasn't doubled in 5 years, but it's still worth asking.
Yeah. No, it's a very interesting thing, and certainly for me it's a very important fact as well. As well, sync. I mean, I wanted to. You touched on sync and about the effects of the Hollywood writers' strike. Certainly, from my perspective, and I don't know whether this follows in Europe and America or anywhere else, but certainly from an African perspective, what the writers' strike did in our territory is it created a lot more local productions. And so I saw sync just grow and grow over the course of the writers' strike. And now it's growing even more because we've got Netflix in the country, we've got Amazon Prime in the country, and now they're all making local productions, partially because there's a great need for it, but secondly, it's about half the price of making any productions. So we've seen a fantastic growth in synchronization over the last 3 or 4 years.
Francesca?
Yes, I absolutely agree with what John just said, but to sort of confirm it and add something more, I would say that the report that we've been producing for the last 4 or 5 years is indicative of the resilience of the sector, the flexibility of the sector, and the dynamism of the sector, as you mentioned, because only with these characteristics can a sector actually come through after the pandemic, which was not something we ever experienced or something that we knew how to deal with. Absolutely helping these characteristics for us, helping our publishers stay flexible, stay dynamic, and stay resilient is what we aim to do. And this report is one of the ways in which we can do it. Is one of the ways in which we can go to institutions, governments, and so on, and make sure they know the strength of the companies that we represent. I mean, the example that comes to mind is the European Commission Creative Europe program, which specifically helped us to through our endeavors. You cannot sort of approach the European community and say, hey, we represent a bunch of publishers. You need to have figures. And I absolutely agree with you, Emmanuel, when you say that we should have the same level of detail and the same kind of data from everywhere in the world. I'm not sure whether that is something that we'll achieve in the near future, because there's still 1 or 2 core problems with this, which is the privacy that most publishers really treasure, and they don't like to share information. The fact that we don't manage to reach absolutely every corner of the business yet. But these are things that we can overcome with work and with showing that what we have is already useful.
It's interesting because you partially answered the question from Jose Quiroz, who was asking what are the actions to be taken from this report. That's going to the European Commission and.
Yeah. I would also add that this report has been useful in respect of actually getting the subscription services, the services, to listen to us more carefully and to actually create an environment for music publisher which is better than what we experienced at the beginning of the relationship with them. This is not done obviously on a singular basis from IMPF to the services, but via our CMOs to whom we report, what has been going on at IMPF, and they follow us closely and they know about the report. They have been able to use it in their negotiations with these services, and therefore partly what we are seeing in terms of improvements in digital income is also due to that. The recognition of the actual worth of the sector.
Mm-hmm. John, any thoughts on that, on how to use the report?
I think the entire report is a very powerful tool to show the importance of the independent music publisher sector. And I think again, another example of the weight and the volume that the IMPF has and its members is in things like the AI, the battle we're having with AI, whereby we're engaging with government, we are submitting reports. These reports are being looked at, they're being read, they're being the information is being taken and used in governmental actions towards the legitimizing and sorting out of this whole AI scenario of who pays, what is AI, how does it need to be treated, etc., etc. And I think again this report is just showing the power of the body of the IMPF and the publishing members.
By the way, I just saw that Cher has put the link to the report in the box. So if you just do a cut and paste, you will find it. I have a question from Allegra Stewart, who's asking, what are the new ways that publishers independently can make money and be more dynamic globally? Now that we have information that shows, the value of the market, how can independent music publishers grow their market, and what are the new sources of revenue? Where do you see that coming?
I think, going to one of your latter points, Emmanuel, about the independent sector, because the major companies have moved away from the traditional element of A&R. I think one of the key things is which there's essentially no competition from a major, is independent publishers can sign, nurture, and bring new talent through and develop it and take it as far as they possibly can. And I think that's a very good way of how we can grow our business individually.
Francesca?
I'm thinking because it doesn't come. I don't really know what we can add to what has been said or to what John has said. Certainly the new areas of growth are in sync and in the new types of usages that we envisage for the near future. I think that the strength of IMPF is actually to be able to widen the discussion on these new borders. AI is one of the things, but there's also the forgotten other universes, the metaverse, and so on, which is going to come back for us, because that's not something that is somewhere where we can actually use music. So new ways of actually making money, well, those are there. But in my opinion, we should concentrate on what is actually going on at the moment and the negotiations that we can have and the improvements we can have in the terms for the usages that are going on today. I'm usually thinking, as usual, thinking of digital income. We were very late to the table when digital started becoming a source of income. And now we are catching up. As I was saying earlier, it is good to have the data from your report, because we can convince the CMOs that we're strong, our music is important, and we're not getting the full benefit, the full share of what we're worth. So I would say that, as well as the new ways of exploiting music, there's also the old ways, including digital, that we need to keep our eyes on.
Very quickly, sorry, go on, John.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of go back to the AI situation, because obviously I'm sure everyone has seen the recent lawsuit that's been launched against some AI companies from the majors. And, for me, this is, now is the time for us to actually get a seat at the table with the record companies, because what happens so often, and certainly what happened with digital, is that we were late to the table, and we didn't get the parity that we should have got from a publishing income perspective. So we should be at the table now with regards to AI, because if the record companies are there trying to take people down and negotiate deals that are going to work for their industry, we need to be at that table so it works for our industry as well.
Francesca, I wanted to ask you very quickly about, you were talking about the strengths of the sector, and you had something happening in Italy last year that was quite unusual with Meta. Can you explain to us what happened, and how was it resolved?
Well, first of all, big surprise, hasn't been resolved yet.
Okay.
So it's still hanging there, but at least our writers are getting paid, as we are sort of working on the basis of the old contract, and the agreement between CI, which is the Italian PRO, and Meta is that as soon as an agreement is reached, whatever the conditions, they will be applied retrospectively. So at the moment, our writers are getting paid, and they don't feel, therefore, that there's anything going on very much. But there is. There was an issue with the renewal of the usage of music by Meta for Italian copyrights. And without going into the details, Meta was assuming that a lump sum payment would be sufficient to guarantee what was needed to Italian writers, and CI did not agree to that. I think rightly, correctly, that's possibly my opinion, but it is a fact that one of the sticking points is the fact that Meta did not want to provide any details of the usage, and it's just not conceivable that a company like Meta could not actually have the figures and the details at their disposal. So I think in our business, CI stood up to them, and Meta initially actually took down all the music from their services, Facebook and Instagram, which obviously caused a little bit of a stir amongst our writers. But time is playing on CI's favor, and we have been able to explain to the writers that what was being done was to protect their rights and avoid their music being exploited for a very, very small return. This is what I mean by saying that if we actually let the services know the strength of our companies and all our writers, then they have no other choice but to actually come to terms with us. And we are not asking for the moon. we're asking for what is the correct remuneration for our artists and our writers.
Well, thank you. I have a question from Monique Rodriguez da Silva. The question is, from 23 to 28, according to research done by Gold Media, composers might lose up to 2.7 billion euros because of AI. Do you have any thoughts about that, John? Is it a guesstimate that, you know?
It has to be a guesstimate. I mean, it is a very worrying. It is a very worrying thing, which is why the IMPF is taking this whole AI situation very, very seriously. We have subcommittees talking every quarter about the new things. JAIR sends weekly reports of articles or governmental informations around. I mean, we're very much on the case, and we need to be very cognizant of the potential damages that could be affecting our industry. Whether it's 2.7 billion euros, I don't know. But this is one of the reasons why I said we need to have a seat at the table as independent music publishers, because we have to be part of the whole negotiation that's going to affect adversely and potentially
that's what I wanted
some pros
to
to our industry as well.
Yes, there probably are some pros as well.
There are definitely pros and cons, as well as cons. But we need to understand the technology. We need to work with the technology, and we need to embrace it, but also be wary of it.
Yes, there's quite a lot of resistance again, in providing data, in actually being transparent from these companies, from companies that work with AI. Obviously, they started by taking the works without asking, and that's a given, it's a fact. So that should be something, the discussion should be starting from. But from then to say that it is all going to be negative, I don't think so. I also don't think so. I don't think that this is going to be resolved in the courts. I hope not. It's a bit like trying to, put the lid back onto, I don't know, something very big that erupted. It's just not possible. The best way to do this, the best way to actually take advantage of what good can come of it, is to engage with these companies and make sure that they know how strong we are and how strong the companies and the writers that we represent are.
Strength in numbers.
Yeah.
And globally. Debbie Pierce, to what extent are independent music publishers taking on the role of record labels, as in funding and releasing albums from the writers they represent? Is that something you see more and more of?
I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been going on for years, but I certainly think it's increasing, and largely because of recording technologies have advanced so much. Whereas in the 80s and 90s, you had to go into a recording studio, which cost you a fortune. Nowadays, people are doing it in their bedroom, and then they're going to independent publishers and they're going to independent labels, and those labels and those publishers are helping them to develop their craft to a point where it's almost finished in their bedroom, other than perhaps mixing and mastering. So absolutely, it's it's that type of thing is happening more and more, but a lot to do with the fact of recording technologies and the advancements of it.
Maybe this is something for you to investigate, Emmanuel, but maybe some of this change could be also behind the growth that we've seen in the sector, because it is obvious to me that to be able to follow a writer from the very beginning and take the project through to completion probably gives the publisher a better handle on all of the project, and is probably able or she's probably able to benefit and profit more from it than before. So I think this is one of the nuances that we need to bear in mind when looking at the figures from your report. Definitely.
Well, one thing I could not identify, but that's when I call for more granular, is that I know that in Europe, and probably to a certain extent also in the US, but there's more and more publishers that actually are collecting neighboring rights. Neighboring rights are linked to sound recordings and its public performance. You don't have that in the US because radio stations don't pay your TV channels. In Europe, you have that. And it is a significant, if you are a publisher and you have actually financed the recording, you are the owner of the sound recording. Therefore, you will get, and if that song is played on radio, you will get neighboring rights. And that's an interesting source of revenue because the neighboring right market is growing. And, every single publisher I know at some point has financed demos. Demos are recordings, and you can use them. You can put them online. You can put them into box sets if you have artists that are established and so on, and that will generate rights. So that's answering the question through that angle, through the neighboring rights angle, is yes, there's more and more of that going on. And if you are in the US, I would suggest you, if you haven't done that yet, to check with Sound Exchange that, because maybe you will have a little bit of money waiting for you there because Pandora or SiriusXM has been using some of your recordings. Okay, let's move on to Kevin Cassini, an excellent lawyer, by the way. Hi, Kevin. Are there any ideas or preferences about turning to an independent serving collective or trade group to capitalize on the 26.7% of the independent music publishers market share? Probably, I don't know if Kevin has in mind something that would be like Merlin for the independent record labels. Maybe there's something called IMPF in Europe where you can actually go and negotiate on behalf of dozens and dozens of music publishers, but I don't know if that's what Kevin had in mind.
I don't know either, but to add to what you just said is the fact that there's an additional difficulty for music publishers, which the labels don't have. There usually is one or two owners of recordings, whereas the ownership in publishing is usually split so finely that it is rather difficult sometimes to actually get through something, and getting everybody to agree to anything. Also, rules are quite different, and in territories, the BEAM territories behave in a different way to territories who are not BEAM, and that's the additional difficulty that we have been facing in this respect. But we have actually thought very much of an organization, a Morgana to go with Merlin. But so far, we have managed to do some of that work with IMPF, and that is coming on very nicely. And I hope that can be sort of widened and expanded as much as possible to take advantage of that famous 26.7%.
Yeah,
I hope
Kevin,
that's Kevin's
Kevin
question.
just said, yeah, it's IMPF, but also in the US. There's no IMPF in the US. So can independent music publishers, harness, their collective power into one organization, or could they do that? And what would be the effects of that? Since none of you are in the US, you might have, outsiders' views. What do you think?
It's difficult to comment on this because it's a completely different environment, and I wouldn't know how something like IMPF could even be available in the US. I mean, my memory goes back to the organization, the Harry Fox organization, which is not compulsory, whereas our PROs are not compulsory either, but they nearly are. Harry Fox in the US did not have as much success as one would have expected. So I don't know about collective management of rights of this kind in the US.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's move to Miguel Bustamante. As far as collection of global royalties go, what are some blind spots you often encounter with indie music publishers? Who wants to pick that one? John, Francesca?
Can you say that again, please? Because
okay, as far as collection of global royalties goes, what are some blind spots you often encounter with indie music publishers? I don't know if the blind spots are with indie music publishers or with the local societies.
Maybe with the societies. Yes.
Yeah, I think a lot again with indie music publishers. It's as with certain societies. It's a data situation. You know, it's clean data, good data. Because if you've got good, clean data, then everything should run smoothly. But I think it's always going to be the systems that people use. Are they adequate? Are they good? Are they how much are they dependent upon human input and human output? And I think that if you're going to find any blind spots, it's going to be there.
I agree with that, and perhaps some help might come from systems like DDX and similar. It is one of the biggest problems in our system, in our sector, the fact that there is no one source of data, but we have several 100,000 different databases which obviously don't agree with each other. So that is one of the problems that we haven't been able to solve yet. Many attempts have been made, as you both know, and all our audience certainly remembers, none of which was successful. We thought for a minute that some systems that came through a few years back would be able to help, but there hasn't been any move in that direction yet. Nobody wants to give up ownership of their data, and so that's where the problem really lies.
Jose Quiros again asks, how he can be involved with IMPF. He's a music maker. So I don't know, since IMPF is about music publishers, I don't know if he has, if he has a structure, he might join IMPF, but
if he's self-published.
Yeah, if it's self-published, you can definitely apply for membership. We welcome companies of any size, and so he would be absolutely welcome to take part.
Okay, well, maybe you'll have a tidal wave of new members coming soon. So we have Andile Magwaza, who says, are there any developments on solving the black box of unmatched royalties due to metadata issues? I think you have mentioned that a little bit, but I think it's a good follow-up.
Yeah, I don't I don't really know that there is a black box problem. It really does depend on the company, on the PRO, on the CMO that you are looking at, because we have in Europe, we have a directive, the Barnier directive, that started on the transparency issue, and all of the European CMOs have actually applied the directive, and they are as transparent as they can possibly be nowadays. So there are some types of income that you cannot possibly apportion in an analytical way. Let's consider, for instance, the music that is played in a gym. You cannot possibly know what was played by a certain gym instructor on that particular day. So although companies like CI in Italy collect a fee from the gym for playing music, they cannot distribute that according to what was actually played. So a certain amount of income that is not analytically distributable is natural, has to be there. So what writers should be wary of is the fact that there's no transparency in how this income is distributed. They should absolutely insist that this is distributed according to the type of income that it is, i.e., if I have a bunch of CDs which were paid without giving any details in a territory, and I have all that money, obviously that is not public performance, that is mechanical royalties, and therefore it should be distributed as mechanical royalties. On the other hand, if I have income coming from hotels and gyms playing music, that is public performance, and I should distribute it according to that. So, you know, it's healthy that a society is actually able to collect, even where there's no analytical detail. It's unhealthy when then it is distributed or kept, you know, not in a transparent way.
Well, actually, there's a follow-up question from Heloisa Adar, who said, how can we count on the strengths of the IMPF network in relation to the poor service, quote, poor service provided by some collecting societies and entities that collect in the digital streaming world that have a monopoly on the market but are far from being committed and transparent? That is a pretty heavy one. Sean?
That's a very difficult one to answer as well. I mean, the IMPF is there to offer support and offer guidance. In most cases it will support you in your causes, and it will support you in all arguments and conversations and communications that you have with your collection societies if need be. The thing is, if there are problems with your CMO in a certain territory, you need to collectively get a body of local publishers and local and whether they're independent or major, and tackle your CMO directly from there, because on a local division you have a lot more power if you've got 75% of the market saying you're not distributing correctly or transparently. So I think the first move would be get the body of your publishers locally together, and by all means ask support from the IMPF, so long as there are enough members within the IMPF within that territory, then they will be there to help.
Someone was asked, sorry, what is a CMO? A CMO is a collective management organization, which in the US would be ASCAP, in Italy will be SIAE, in Germany will be GEMA. It's also sometimes called a PRO, Performance Rights Organization. So it's it's either or.
Yes. If I can sort of pick up from where John left the discussion on what IMPF actually does to help with situations. Well, we have had instances in which CMOs were being particularly obstinate in not distributing or not being transparent with their members. And these CMOs, in 2 cases that I can recall, have been taken up with CSAC and have been sort of put on warning. And this is a very serious situation for a CMO. And therefore it is really usually they sort of come back into the fold and remedy what the complaint was about. As to the second part of the question,
by the way, I'm just, since you're not naming them, I think it's Spain and Greece.
Yeah, well, no, in that case it's 3, because it's Spain and Greece and Poland.
Okay.
Yeah. yeah, I didn't want to sort of point a finger to anyone. As to the services, I mean, the services are not transparent, but that's their nature. I mean, they operate on an algorithm which is completely unknown to anyone apart from the ones who own it. So transparency from them is a hope that we might as well forget. What we can do is make sure that the methods of actually distributing the royalties is as fair as possible. At the moment, organizations are proposing different ways of looking at distribution of income from the services, not necessarily what they're doing at the moment. Deezer in France, for instance, is trying a different system. Same goes for Spotify. These are early days, and we don't know how that is going to affect the income for writers and for artists. But we are keeping an eye on that, both as publishers and also as labels. Therefore, there is a conversation to be had if they are too punishing in respect of independent artists, independent writers, independent publishers.
John, anything to add to that?
No, that's nothing more to add.
Nothing more to add. Okay, I think we're gonna close soon because we've passed the hour by 8 minutes. One very quick one from Artists and Lyrics. They say the young record label, we're looking for collaboration which would help us grow. Recently, we added a streaming website to our service, and we'd like to see songs directly distributed to the website for our audience to stream. We're not too sure how this happens. Our desire is to link up with companies to walk us through the process. We want our website to be registered with publishing companies for them to distribute to our website. Any thoughts on that? Maybe contact your local PRO. Maybe that would be a good way to start and get a license.
That would be the start. Absolutely.
Yes. And the same question that this gentleman or lady posed to us should be, posed to the CMO.
Yeah.
Okay. And last but not least, Debbie Pierce again, asking you, Francesca, do you think CIA will ever pay performance income for the use of music in TV commercials?
Yes, they will from January 2025. That was short, sweet, and to the point, wasn't it?
Wow, I didn't know that, so I learned something today. Fantastic. Thank you. And
Yes.
I think Debbie's happy too. That's a very good way to end, say you were talking about new sources of revenues. This one is starting. By the way, for people in the US who don't, in Europe, you also collect money from in movie theaters. Also, you collect money from advertising in most countries like France, Germany, Holland, etc., which is something you don't necessarily do in the US. So there are the sources of revenue actually are a bit wider. I would like to.
That was 2025. Someone 2055. No,
2020
from next January.
Well, and not in the year 2525, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to end this session by thanking again all the good people at Music Biz. I think it has been a very interesting session. We had a lot of followers, a lot of very good questions. So I would like to thank Music Biz, but also Francesca from Italy, John from South Africa.
Thank you.
And you can always go on the IMPF website, get more information. If you want to join, I think there's procedures over there. I think Jer put the link if you want to join as members. And as I said, the best way to meet like-minded music publishers is to go to Palma early October at the IMPF summit. So on that note, I would like to say goodbye to everyone and see you maybe next year in Atlanta for Music Biz 2025. À bientôt. And now I'm gonna go and watch France, Poland.
Okay.
That's a soccer game.
From the Music Biz team,
Okay.
Emmanuel, Francesca, John, thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for spending time past the hour to answer everyone's questions. And thank you all for being here today. We really appreciate your attention and your activity getting to know our topic today. So have a great rest of your day. Enjoy whatever you're doing next. And we hope to see you at the next Passport event.
Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.